Calling all retro gamers.
Calling all retro gamers!
Calling all retro gamers!
Calling all
retro gamers!
I love
What's
that
going
track,
on,
by the way.
everyone? What is going on? Welcome to Calling All Retro Gamers. It's another fine Thursday night, and we've got a guest. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome.
This looks familiar
There he
from
is.
the
Right down
intro.
below. It's GeekStorian. What's going on? And of course, my partner in crime, Ed RetroKillDashNine, in the house, ready to rock.
And for
We've got
everyone
some
who's new, this is the podcast just so me and Rich have an excuse just to stay in touch and talk to each other all things retro game and blah, 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 whatever.
That's it. We got all sorts of cool stuff for you. And then, of course, when we do have guests, we like to talk to the guests, make sure we got some questions, and then we'll see how the
You
conversation
talk to your
goes.
guests? I've been doing this wrong the whole time.
So but we got some people up in here already. We got Brian F. What's going on? Let's say hi. We've got Panda Sub 2000. What's up? How is it going with the trademark howdy? We've got Ian Hobbies in the house. That's pretty cool. What's going on? PJ Smith also in the house. How's it going? And I missed somebody. Oh, Fan and Fiction is here. What's up? How's it going, man? What's up? How's it going? So so this is one of those things where we get the early summons.
Early summons? Okay.
There he is.
All right.
He's hitting the button.
I'll let Ralph handle this one.
RetroKillDashNine!
All right. We're in.
I don't know all the quirks to this stream. I'm used to the cat fighter. I'm not used to that one yet.
There's like 12 of them. So, but we only get one per show. And it's when Ian usually says RetroKillDashNine because, of course, it's Ed. Let's go.
Oh, hey, Panda. Since you are here, from time to time, your ghost shows up. So here you go.
You got your boy Phoenix.
Don't know if he's actually seen that.
God, you got him from like Super Seducer. Oh, so tragic.
Yeah,
That's good.
yes. I know it's funny.
Good
I chose that
For
one.
every woman he tried to hit on and the game, not him.
So look, as we get into the intro, shaking off a little bit of rust. For me, I've been far away from a camera and microphone. I mean, since the Evercast, and then before that, since the last Evercast, it's been absolutely bonkers in my real life situation. So
I know, right?
I'm just happy to be hanging out, talking about some cool stuff, and we got some interesting topics for you tonight. So that's gonna be pretty cool. But how's everyone's week been since we'll just kick this off?
Busy. This is much needed. Work-wise, busy.
Yeah, you've been getting slammed too.
Yeah,
it's just been
not as
rough,
busy as
right?
you, but still busy.
It's like a bloody nightmare.
It's been a crazy busy week. I think it's just one of those weeks, man. Like it's not a full moon, but it feels like it's full moon, and everything kind of goes sideways. And you're just sitting there going, "How did I miss all this stuff? How did that happen?"
Yeah, right.
It's been one of those.
It's absolutely crazy.
Let's just say every day it's like, what hell am I walking into now? It's gonna happen. Work-wise.
Yeah, I walked in today because today is one of my work from home days because my company does 3 days in the office and 2 days at home now. As kind of a change up from since the pandemic hit and everybody was working at home. They're like, this is one of the concessions we're going to do to try to be able to, one, retain employees and two, hopefully get new talent. So I stayed at home today thinking, okay, this will be kind of a calm day. Maybe I could do a little editing on the side. It doesn't seem like I've got a lot of stuff. And the moment I logged in, hey, can you help me with this? And I'm like, oh no, it's one of those. And it was until like straight up like 3 o'clock where I said, you know what? I've been working since I logged in at 7. I'm going for a run. I'm done. So yeah, it's been one of those weeks.
That's nuts. So, so all right. So we fail as hosts. By the way,
Dude,
um,
seems fun to me.
introducing like everybody, and then introducing you as GeekStorian. But we haven't actually like we need to start talking.
Okay. Can I start? Okay.
Yes.
I've been dying to. Okay. So yeah. So all right. So let's step back in time, because I'm trying to figure out when I first knew about your channel. The Geeks with Cash. Before we get into the GeekStorian.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go.
I'll say through the Rich Network. I want to say either I'm trying to remember, like that's usually like how I found out about like Papa P. Either in passing or discussion. I know, and I forget. I apologize. I know, like you've had like live shows on that channel, and then you did some other stuff like can I get good at Contra and things like that.
Yeah.
But so what's interesting, and this is the precursor to GeekStorian, I forget, like when I say recently, like you've done like some Evercade and other stuff, which is cool. But I
gotta get back into that. I keep meaning to, and I don't have time. That's the problem.
Well,
I don't have enough time.
You don't need to, because you need to spend the time on the GeekStorian channel. No, whatever you want to do. but I think what most people
like the Evercade. I mean, I like it as a concept, and I think it's a neat console. Now, poor Chuck has had too many of these things break to have a lot of confidence on it. But I mean, overall, it's a great idea. I like it. So
I know, and I like seeing your reviews and takes on it. But what I don't know, what people don't know, is when you started on your Geeks with Cash channel, when you started the game mechanics.
Yeah.
And so what I thought was interesting is like there was one you just called like Life Bars. I'm like, okay, what's this? And what I thought was amazing is you take like a simple concept, that jumping, and like turn it like into a 10 or more minute episode to actually make like a plain mechanic like super interesting. Right. And so
I love that series. The no channel I put it on really likes that series, but I like that series a lot.
Yeah.
I want to upload the next one, and then I got one on stage design / world building, and how like not only your character design, but like talent trees and the way you interact with the environment helps kind of tie you into whatever world or stage you're building. And how your character needs to affect the stage of the world, and how the world needs to affect your character. So that's kind of the concept for like the first new one that will hit the GeekStorian channel.
Oh, nice. And then so then I didn't even know you had a second channel. I want to say that like on Pete's Discord, with like the recommended video promotions. Then I saw that, and I was like, wait a second. I think at first I was confused. I was like, oh, he started a whole second channel. And so what's great, like, I love your intro. Like, first of all, like, your whole channel goes for that 80s, like, 90s, like, mishmash. And that whole, like, that intro is kind of like if you, like, it's, like, very, like, 90s. Like, if you went to a website. Like it's awesome, right? Like, that's like the era of, like, the GeekStorian. And what's great is, so the style that you do, like, I love watching, like, documentary styles. But it, like, to do that, like the amount of work, I mean, like I get that, like just to do like regular editing is a pain. So I know like all the work and everything that goes into it. And what's great about the way that you do it. So there's two parts. Either like I learned something that I didn't know about, or there's stuff that I do know about, but it hits that nostalgia. Like when you did the episode on the Power Glove, right? Like
right.
Like some stuff I know, some stuff maybe I didn't know, but it's great though. And like when you have like what the heck is it, like I'll call it the Albert Einstein characters flying across this, like the different things, and you have like the music right.
Oh yeah.
Whatever you call that, like the formulas, And
I use that a lot, especially I like to use that when I'm talking about something technical, because sometimes it gets a little weird, and I feel like the formulas kind of like make that hit home a little better.
Yeah,
like thematically. And kind of helps people go, yeah, okay, it's okay to be a little confused right now, because I might be too when I'm going through it. Because sometimes when I'm writing this up, I don't either fully understand what I'm doing, what I'm reading out, or it took me several tries of reading it to really understand it. Kind of like the barrel shifter on the Space Invaders one, right? That took me 3 or 4 times of going, wait, you're taking... Okay, you're dumping things into a multiplexer. I know what a multiplexer does, but then you're dumping the multiplexer into a multiplexer. What the hell? Okay, this is sort of starting to make some weird sense, but I'm sure I'm going to get the math wrong.
Gotcha. But I mean, it's nice though, because someone who like kind of grew up in the era, like we get like the style and the visuals, and like I think it's funny like when you have yourself like freeze framed with various expressions, like with that outline, like that's just
Oh yeah,
that's
I took a bunch of those at one time,
but I love that
been
though,
reusing them.
no, I love that because it's like you're meant to like, it's like you're purposely trying to be like cheesy or ironic, like it just fits, right? Like like something you would see like in the 80s, like something like pop up like, hey, we can't do full motion graphics. I don't know, but so it's just it's neat. I mean, it's it's very difficult to do documentaries, and like that one and so what's interesting, because I think before the Metroid one, you did like 10-15 minutes was the longest, and that Metroid one was around 27 or 30 minutes.
Oh god, that one was so long. I love that video. That's probably one of my favorite ones.
Dude, I was
but
glued
it's
to that.
So long.
Yeah.
That sometimes people struggle to get through it. The people that get through it, the ones that actually get pretty deep into it, seem to actually enjoy it or have some. I had one criticism where like, "What? No Metroid Dread?" I'm like, okay, that's fair, but I kind of did this. I kind of originally came out with this before Metroid Dread, and then I re-released it on this channel, and I just didn't have it in me to add like another 5 or 10 minutes to that video because it was already pushing it, right?
Yeah.
27 minutes is already way long, right? So trying to push that to like say what would probably be, I'd say 35 minutes, because you could easily spend another 5 to almost 9 minutes just on Dread if you really wanted to, and how it ties into things like fusion and this, that, and the other, and what design choices they made and all that stuff. And then that's if you're just going light on it, which I do a lot of times on some of these videos to try to keep them somewhere between 5 and 8 minutes, right? Like the ones I try to do every week, I try to keep those somewhere between 5 and 8 minutes. One, so it's easier to edit, and two, so I don't tap the audience too hard on anything.
Yeah.
So there's some details I'll leave out on something that could probably easily be a 15-minute video, or if you're the game historian, a 25 to 40-minute video, to try to keep it tight and concise and be respectful of people's time, right?
Yeah. See, I like how you use your bites, and so since you brought up criticism, I thought it was so when you made that that video like thanking everybody. So like the funny thing is like I didn't know that like you'd like shot up to like over like 500 or 600 subs, and when I looked at that TurboGrafx video, you had like 15,000, and so okay,
dude, it was crazy. I have no idea.
So here's a soapbox of mine with like, not to get off topic with YouTube, is that here's what kills me sometimes when I make my own videos. I would think that like if that many people liked it, why not they just click the sub button? Like just you know what I mean?
It's up to people. Some people watched it for a couple minutes and it wasn't their thing. Some people watch it and they hated the TurboGrafx and told me so, and gave it a top vote. And I'm like, okay, I'm not saying this is the best console ever. I just did a documentary on it, my dude.
Yes,
but it's fine.
On your TurboGrafx parade.
There's some YouTubers where I might not watch all their videos, so I'll turn the alerts off, but I'll sub to them because I want to support. I don't know. That's just kind of a pet peeve. I'm like, if you really like someone's video, it just takes like 2 seconds. And so the other thing that I thought was weird that you said that like some people have issues with your voice. For me, I find your voice like relaxing. Like
I had several people tell me I needed to use noise canceling. It was too high pitched or too nasally, and I'm like, and I did spend like 2 hours kind of playing with it until I came right back to the same settings I had. And I'm like, I'm not an audio engineer. Like there's entire classes in schools that just teach you how to tweak audio on devices. And I have a really good like Rode podcaster thing. It's high quality gear. So it can do way more than I can do with it. I just don't know how to make it dance. So I'm doing the best I can with it to make it sound good. Right. And I feel like I've done an okay job there. Could it be better? Absolutely. But then I think that about everything I ever drop. I think this was okay. This was pretty good. I'm happy with it. This could be way better. And I think actually is any kind of creator, that's important, right? One, it kind of keeps you a little bit humble, and two, it keeps you hungry. Because if you're not trying to do new stuff and you're not trying to do something interesting and you're not passionate about it, or you're not passionate about the and more importantly, passionate about the process of what you're doing, then what are you doing? Why are you doing it?
Apparently,
right?
you have a singing whimsical. Oh, so what's kind of,
yeah, Panda said that several times, and he's given me some tips to kind of break things up, because it will kind of, in his own words, it will kind of lull people to sleep a little bit, because I kind of have this ebb and flow, which I consider more Southern, because I was born in Alaska and raised in Tennessee, so I have a very Southern drawl that's got manipulated a little bit by living a short time in Buffalo and then moving to Colorado. So my accent is all over the place and a little unique by most places' standards. Most people would call it Southern, but if I go to the South, they're like, "Where the hell are you from?"
But you want somebody with a relaxed voice, like with me. I know that I'm too hyper, but if you like listen to anyone like Summoning Salt, Sands of Time, like people who do documentaries, they kind of talk in that slower, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like they're not like hyper like I am. So it's good, you know. And it's funny. People have said things about me like, you make weird noise. It's like, you know, like you said, like, hey, I am who I am. I can't.
You are super high energy and energetic. Like you almost have you channel a little bit of Macho Man, Randy Savage, I'd say a couple times.
Yes.
Along with a little hyper of like whatever that guy that goes yes, yes, yes all the time. It's like a blend of those two sometimes.
Right.
Because sometimes you get really like high pitched, super excited. And other times it's almost like, oh yeah, kind of vibe.
I don't have the macho. Oh man, I don't have the Macho Man clip here loaded, anyways. But yeah, thank you.
But you have a blend of those, because I watched a lot of your content, and I'm like, he goes really crazy high energy sometimes, and then it's kind of like what I consider like normal you, like if you were talking in an office or to a normal person, and then it's like super into it again, and then it's kind of it kind of goes in waves and spikes.
So
right? Depends on what gets you worked up.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
So you mean like this guy? Yeah.
Oh yeah!
Snap at those Slim Jim.
Yeah, I got too many clips. Well, funny that you mentioned that, because I know kind of before all this, like when we were on Panda's podcast, whatever, that live like quiz show or anything. What's funny, because like I thought you were like super serious. Actually, I thought like a lot of those folks are super serious. And then we were on, and I was like, oh, y'all are just as weird and crazy and fun, like, you know what I mean? So,
I try to throw a little bit of humor into any of the documentaries I do. And I'm trying to get a little bit better about doing it, because sometimes they're a little dry. And a lot of them I've seen are very, very dry. So one, I try to make my tone a little bit warmer and a little bit more personable, kind of like I'm trying to have a little bit more of a conversation, and to all throw things like GIFs or something goofy in there.
Yes.
To kind of try to break the monotony a little bit and maybe get a smirk. If I get a chuckle, cool. But if I just get a smirk, I'm okay with that. And that's because a lot of times it's hard to stay engaged with documentaries for a long period of time. And some people like those super serious ones, and that's a turnoff for my channel. But I find most of the time some people want a little bit of humor, right?
Yeah. But it's nice that we get them in bites. So the funny thing about being excited, the downside of that is sometimes when I get too like super excited, like it's difficult for me to collect my thoughts, or sometimes like I can't write out a whole script. Like to me, that would be like so much work. And so some of the few times when I have,
I love doing that though.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. For me,
that's how I organize myself. Because if I just get in front of a camera and talk, I'll babble incoherently.
Yeah, it's a tough balance. You know, it's a tough balance. But yeah. So that's what I'm like. You know, we had to get you on, because I mean, you know, and that's why it was just, you know, important to do this, just to tell you, like, you're one of those YouTubers that when I get an alert and I see you have a new video, like it makes me, you know, like it makes me happy.
Dude, I love that. I like when people are. I like it when people are excited to check out different stuff on the channel, because there's a lot of people that have said that while they like the TurboGrafx and they might like the GameCube video, a lot of the stuff just kind of sits there kind of fallow. And some of that stuff that is what a lot of people might consider throwaway stuff. Some of it, like the internet one, that one was actually kind of hard to pull off, because how do you visualize something like the internet, right? How do you make that impactful? How do you bring that to people and talk about it in a way, not only talk about it, because talking about it's interesting enough, because there's a lot of work and a lot of stuff I just dropped out of the video, because that easily could be a 30-minute video, just the technology behind how the internet became the internet. Like, no joke. But nobody would want to watch that on this channel. So I tried to cover a little bit about that and then go into how it started to affect gaming. But it was getting people there, right? That was tricky, and I thought it worked. I was pretty happy with it. It hasn't really it's getting a little better, but it's not getting the best reception. But a lot of people are kind of starting the people that I love that come back to the channel, the people that find the stuff like that doesn't necessarily get found, not just for the numbers, because a lot of times I just think some of that stuff that doesn't always get caught, like the Revenge of Shinobi one. There's a lot of cool effects I put in that one that I'm really happy with that not a lot of people saw that I thought were fun. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being partial.
No, no, it's funny that you mentioned that, because sometimes when you do put things into videos and stuff, I wonder if people notice. And sometimes when they do put that like in the comment section, it is kind of cool.
Yeah, some people noticed a lot of like the smoke effects and smoke bombs and stuff like that, and a lot of people missed it. And I promise you, if I can manage to get it done, I'm working on one on Kirby right now because it was a request from Slankobon, who's got a great streaming channel. She's an absolute sweetheart, and she absolutely adores Kirby. And so she mentioned a Kirby video, and I'm like, sure, I can do that. She's like, wait, you're going to do it? I'm like, yeah, why not? So I'm going in kind of like as Kirby as a character and kind of how he developed into the first game and like the powers and abilities he got until he kind of became the more iconic character he was, and then go kind of into the anime and more a little bit of the lore, and both the anime lore and the game lore, and going a little bit into the manga, because surprisingly there was a fairly long running manga on the character. And so but to make a short story long, I guess there's a lot of cuts and transitions I put in there that I expect most people are going to miss some of the details that I'm being a little bit of a nitpicky about with myself, right? Like there's one transition where he like inhales the screen, but when he comes up, I could have just brought him up and have his mouth open, but instead I have it closed, and then it opens, and then he inhales it, and then I finish the animation where he like closes his mouth and he like blinks a time or two, and then he goes away. Well, it's easy to miss because it's pretty quick. It's like maybe 2 seconds, 2-3 seconds. Somebody who's really sharp-eyed will catch it, but a lot of people aren't going to catch that. But to me, it matters, right?
Well, there you go.
I want it to look right.
Yeah. But no, I think it's awesome, especially when you are on that journey to like kind of learn that stuff. Because I don't know, like that's like we're kind of all just we're doing this for fun, right? This isn't our day job, but learning all of those cool things along the way is awesome. And it's one of those things I'm envious, because I wish I had more time to do some of the things that are locked in this head. Because if I had more time, there would be like all sorts of crazy stuff, like coming out. And it's awesome to see people that have the time really kind of honing that skill. And it's awesome. That's a large part of the reason why I enjoy watching your stuff, because it's you can tell that you're learning the process and you're refining it as you go.
Yeah.
Every video I try to. Some of the ones during the week are kind of almost paint by numbers, because I know certain transitions that work for me that I like. I know certain things I want to put in there. A lot of times I'll try to put something a little bit different in there, a little bit unique. But the ones that I really kind of want to push on are the ones that I'll commonly drop on Fridays. And a lot of those were honestly on the previous channel. Nobody found them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of why I made the channel.
Yeah. No, but I like that you broke. Oh, so speaking, since you brought up Kirby, I'm trying to remember what Nintendo. It was one of those video game documentaries. I don't know if it was something on the channel, but Nick, you can tell me if you already knew this. But do you know how who Kirby was named after? I guess I should ask.
Yeah, I think his last name was actually Kirby, but I think his first name was John. He was a lawyer that defended Nintendo in the 80s versus NBC Universal at the time that were suing him over King Kong.
There you go. Put you on the spot.
And I learned that while doing the video, quite frankly, because I know nothing about Kirby walking into it. And those are the kind of projects I like. I don't know anything about it necessarily. Like, dude, I learned so much about Pac-Man because I'm writing up a script for Pac-Man. And I'm like, God, this is a really cool character in game now. I didn't know any of this.
I love Pac-Man.
And it's so much cooler now that I know more about it, right? And that's why I like doing what I do on the channel, because it may be something I know a little bit about, but as I dig into it, it gets so much more fascinating. The more I dig into it a lot of times. And sometimes it's the reverse. Sometimes I look at something and go, I don't know if I want to do this. And then I start digging into it and I'm like, oh my God, like I can't stop reading on this. How am I going to trim this down? Oh my God, what have I got
imagine
myself
that's a
into?
challenge. Yeah. but the only reason I bring that, which I forget when I learned, I mean, how cool would it be like for some company to like name you, like, to like, what a way to tribute somebody to name them after a character. So that's, I think
it was amazing, dude.
Yeah.
And honestly, what's funny, and this is kind of a spoiler for the character, the original character's name was Po. I'm not even kidding. And it translates into it. At first, I translated it wrong, and I had all these jokes written up, and I was so happy with these jokes. Because when I originally translated it, it translated it from Hawaiian, and I didn't realize it. So it originally translated as rotten. And I'm like, oh, this is hysterical. Because it was the first game was Po of the Spring Breeze. So it was going to be Rotten Spring Breeze. And then it was going to be Twinkie Po. And I'm like, a rotten Twinkie? Are you serious? Those things never go bad. So I literally played that up. And then I went back and did the translation again. It actually translates from Japanese into pow, which is totally nonsensical, but not nearly as funny.
So you were saying a little bit before when you're, like putting together some of these videos that you have to cut a lot, and then, like, because you want to be respectful of everybody's time and like that kind of thing. Have you ever left yourself like editors breadcrumbs to kind of like pick some of that stuff up to maybe like,
I don't really have a lot of outtakes on it. And if I was to set anything up, and I don't think I'll ever do this. So don't take this as like I'm planning to do this or whatnot, because I don't really have any plans for a Patreon or any kind of like a subscription or anything on the channel if it happens to get there. If I did that, I might go ahead and do longer versions of the videos and then cut it.
Got it.
And put the longer version somewhere else for people who are like either subscribers or Patreons or whatever. The people who want to, because those are the people I think would actually enjoy the longer version, right? As opposed to the more edited down, more breath version of it, right? Because if I was going to do that, I might go back to the Metroid one, totally retweak the Metroid video, change some of the dialogue that's just there in big paragraphs, cut that up a little bit, do some other work with it, and add in Dread, and maybe talk about my thoughts on Dread, on how it didn't really work as a horror game, but why it's still kind of a very successful game, right? Because I don't feel like Dread was necessarily an appropriate name for Metroid Dread, because I didn't feel a lot of it. The first time I ran into an EV, I felt Dread. But after like the third time, I know exactly where they pop up. I know exactly what they're doing. I know exactly what the area is like. So it's more Metroid annoyance than Metroid Dread, right? Because the EVs are more of an annoyance by the end than they are like dreadful.
Or what you can do too for subs is you can or for a patron, you can put it to them first, and then you can split it up into like two parts.
Yeah, well, and one of the things I want to do when I've caught up too is I also want to start using the community tab and put up a couple of suggestions, and maybe leave it up for people also to just put random suggestions in there. Right now, I have two people who had made requests before. One was for Kirby, and the other one was the Magnavox Odyssey 2.
Ooh, nice! Didn't know you were taking requests.
And so that's going to be one of the things I'm going to start doing for people that are paying attention to the community tab.
That's cool.
And it may take a long time to get to those, but I'm going to start making a list and prioritize first come, first serve on that list.
Add Street Fighter 2.
Street Fighter as a series, period, would be a really good one. Yeah. Because the original Street Fighter is a terrible game, but an interesting piece of video game lore, Street Fighter 2's pretty much killed regular beat 'em ups almost completely overnight when it hit, because it got so big so fast.
Yeah.
And then it only got like cooler from there because they accidentally introduced a combo system. I've already done some research on that in Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was one of my personal lists, and Diablo to an extent that I had a script written up a long time ago and never finished. So yeah, there's other ideas out there for longer videos that I not gotten to or I shelved at some point, because Diablo originally was was going to be based off Rogue, the original Rogue.
Oh, really?
Because it's a roguelike game at its core with procedurally designed elements. And so the guy originally wanted to do a turn-based rogue-style game when he came up with the idea.
It's interesting the way it went went though. Like,
Yeah. Well, Blizzard talked to him after they saw it and liked it, but they wanted something that was a little bit more action oriented. So he went back and tweaked it into the original Diablo.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at the original Diablo and then anything that came after that, it's not even a comparison. It's so different in such a better way too.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, before I forget, so since you did bring up Metroid, the one thing that I had learned, which makes a lot of sense when you talked about, or Super Metroid, that they'd spent like 3 years and like the level of attention to detail,
Oh,
the long
dude,
hours,
they were crazy on that game. I love that game.
which it shows because so like for me, like yes, that game like. But they beat it like in 5 or 6 hours, like compared to the original one. But then again,
I know
being a kid,
people
maybe
who
it's
can beat
longer.
it in about 2 hours.
Yeah.
They can speed run in 2 hours or less.
Yeah, but like the way it was done, it was so much. It was just like so much fun. I remember that as a kid, like the experience and the takeaway. And that's why, like for people, it's like their best and favorite Metroid, because I know a lot of people like the Metroid trilogy and all that, but for me, like I don't want to play Metroid as a first-person shooter. Maybe I'm weird. Like I like
I
the
liked
original.
Metroid Prime 3. I thought the controls on the Wii worked better for it. And I didn't think
I like
Prime as
that
a
too.
series was a bad idea. I think it's a good idea. But there's something about those older Metroids, and I think it has to do with the era of the game. And part of the reason that those stand out to me is, one, that's partially what I was first introduced to, was the very first Metroid, because I'm just that old. And
Right.
secondly, when you really start looking at it and you start really looking at like the way they framed things, the way they zoomed in on things, the way they tried to draw your eye to things, they were doing a lot of cinematic work, even in the original Metroid, and more so in Super Metroid, in a time where games weren't really doing that as much yet. Right? And then Metroid, just the whole concept of, well, we dropped you in here, go.
Exactly, like
Right.
Is
Zelda.
just such a, pardon me for being blunt, such a ballsy idea.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah.
That it's just crazy to think about in a day when you're doing stuff like Ghosts and Goblins and Mario Brothers and stuff with like fixed stages. We had literally just moved out of Atari 2600 days and 5200 days.
Yep.
So people weren't even conceptually ready for stuff like that yet.
Mhm.
That kind of open-ended exploration kind of game.
Yeah,
And yet here it was.
Yeah.
Almost at the launch of the Nintendo. That's insane.
So,
Yeah.
so speaking of that, Rich, we almost forgot to ask Nick the question that we asked our guests. I wanted to like dive into
Oh
it.
no, I had it in the queue ready to fire. So,
Oh, you guys go ahead. I'm
listen,
rebounding
listen,
off whatever
listen,
you're saying and then going
no,
off on
so-
tangents because
so
that's
one
what I do.
So one quick thing before that, since both Zelda and Metroid, are discs, but initially were the disc-based systems, and it's funny because supposedly it did have better sound. And tell me if you guys feel the same way. What's weird to me is I'm sure you've seen the videos where they show the Famicom disc-based system, like the noise for opening up the doors and all that. Like to me, like hearing that version of it sounds bizarre. Like same with Zelda, because that's not what I grew up with. Like for me,
Right.
like hearing the Nintendo versions of both those games, like the sounds are the right because that's what I grew up with. Like even though it's supposed to be enhanced sound, it sounds like it's weird. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it sounds like it's.
Interesting bit of trivia related to Zelda. If you look at the manual on the Legend of Zelda, even the American version, it will say like those little bunny guys, I forget what their names are, that they don't like sound. And you think that's related to the flute.
Yeah.
There was a microphone on the Famicom system.
yeah,
You could make noise into it and hurt them. That's what it was originally based off of. The
That's
flute
awesome.
still works when you're in a dungeon instead of taking you to another location, which is where you probably run into those. But that wasn't the original idea.
Oh,
Mhm.
and before that, so I know what I wanted. This may be an obvious question. I know what I wanted to ask you. How do you find these crazy devices like this?
Oh, dude,
like
a lot of
these
web searching. There's some Smithsonian sites.
Yeah.
Oddly, I found history.com is really inaccurate. I was super disappointed because I
Oh, no.
I went there and they were talking about like the first console being, I want to say they put the Atari, and I'm like, no,
But
no.
but I mean like
wrong.
the latest one that you did with like that weird infrared thing. Like I never even knew. And that's what I love
Oh,
about
the
watching it.
UFOs? Oh, I found out about that through AVGN.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
how do you-
And honestly, a
Yeah.
lot of the research on that video, I'm just going to own up to it. The Game Historian was a huge resource for that. He's got a 24-minute video. I need to go back in and link it in mine. It's amazing. He got so much footage from talking to the developer of it and the stuff he used to do, stuff I couldn't find anywhere. And the only reason I went to his videos because I couldn't find anything anywhere on it. And I was to the point where I'm like, I'm either gonna have to drop the video or watch his and try to take it in a new direction, or maybe it's more approachable than his version. And so I tried to tweak it and do things, but I didn't even think about the theremin until I was sitting there kind of looking at the device, and the guy literally said, I went looking at a theremin and I'm like, oh God, that makes total sense. Why didn't I even put 2 and 2 together? That makes absolute sense. Exactly what you're trying to do is exactly how you play a theremin. That makes total sense to me now.
Yeah. Okay, so using the Estonia. No, I didn't know because if I were to do that, I'd probably go to Google and type in like weird retro gaming control.
Actually, one of the first searches I'll do is I'll do like a gaming history or gaming throughout the years and stuff like that. And there's a couple sites I bookmarked that are good sources for that. And there's other times where I'll just kind of go looking for stuff, and then I'll find something like I can't remember. Let me see if I can find this site again because I think I actually bookmarked it. But they had one on like 1940 on something called a Nematron, and I'm like, what the heck is a Nematron? Like, I don't even know what this is. And then as I'm looking at it, I'm going, what the heck is Nem? Because it's based off a game called Nem. And so a video game history timeline is one of the places I've used a lot. And then there's another thing that Pandas pointed out to me, and pardon my green screen going down for a minute.
Speaking of Panda Sub, you
he
two
pointed out the book, but go ahead.
You know, say speaking of Panda Sub, it was kind of funny. I think I commented, I'm like, you two need to get together and just do some like cool, crazy.
I would love to do that. He's so busy with his own projects right now, though. Yeah. It's hard to time things with him, and his projects, especially some of them that are trying to get him into his dream job, are far more important than any piddly thing I would do. So I try not to bug him too much, though I do bug him quite frequently. Because I feel like he needs to get out of his own head sometimes.
Yeah, or like I'm just like something that would be cool, and just throwing it out there. Like, let's say you were gonna do something like on the 2600. Let's like have him like build like a studio where like you go like inside of something cool.
Well, me and him were bouncing ideas at one point about doing, because he likes to do more story arcs, and I'm better at doing documentaries, not necessarily story arcs, because I haven't gotten to the point in my writing where I'm really good at writing just like fictional story arcs that have cool tie-ins like he does. That's a skill I don't have right now, and it may be a skill I never develop. But it's a really cool skill that he's very good at. And he was talking about doing something on the 32X. And so I thought about doing a little bit deeper dive into that with him, where he would have one video, it would kind of point at my video. I would do more on the nuts and bolts of what I could find on the 32X, and then go back to him to finish his arc kind of thing, right? And kind of bounce off each other that way. I don't know if that'll ever really pan out, but it's a cool idea that I still am really enamored with.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, or as I say, like he has to make you a character or do like the origin of the Geek Historian, and you can make up some.
I'm sure he'll probably throw me in something at some point. Probably he's thrown DJC in several things, and DJC works great in everything he's thrown him into. It's pretty amazing stuff. But no, the other thing that I've used is this book here. This is called Phoenix 4. It's by an author called Leonard Herman. And he doesn't have a super amount of detail on any one thing in here, but literally he goes through chronologically from like the very, very early days. And my biggest critique with this is it's organized by year. So if you don't know what year you're looking at, you're going to have a bad time. Or you're just going to be flipping through the book for a while. But he starts right around 1951. And he goes all the way through like 2012. No, first 2012, 2015.
Wow.
On various different items, events, gadgets in video game history. And it's a really cool compendium book. And so it's a great place. Like if I'm just struggling for ideas, I'll just start flipping through this thing sometimes, or I'll look for a particular year and I'll flip through that year and see if I find anything interesting. So this is another resource I'll use a lot of times. And I honestly need to pick up more books like this, because there's a lot of people that have done a lot of research on it and people just haven't picked up the books. Yeah. And I find sometimes even if I can just take their story and I can put it in a video format, maybe it'll get somebody digging. And it's worked. I find a lot of people will come back and they'll either critique me or they'll be like, oh, dude, I did all this digging and then I found all this. And I'm super tickled when they do that.
That's awesome.
Even if it just reinforces my point or completely contradicts my point, I love that. That means you watched it and you got interested and you went digging.
Yeah.
What's cooler
Yeah.
than that?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
somebody who made a video than to get your
Yep.
engagement to where you went out and you spent your free time doing your own homework to come
Yeah.
back and point the finger at me. That's super cool.
Yeah,
That's- You're right, though. It's
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's probably more. That's probably like more time than I want to spend. But yeah, there's different. Like for me, like to me, I like learning through watching like videos and like reading that stuff on my own. It's more fun and all that. But what's funny too? 40 minutes. Okay, Rich, go ahead and ask the question. No, this is all good stuff. When I said I wanted to dive into it, yeah, go ahead and ask.
It's all good. It's all good. So
we do things the way we want.
That matter to me, man. I'm here. This is way more organized than I'm used to.
yeah, I know. So, and we're like all the way loose today. It's like, you know, like for us, it's like the wheels are already off.
Trust me, I've been on Mike's show. There is no organization. There's no organization on NLG. I love that show, but there's no organization.
NLG is the best. Shout out Gamers United Guild, by the way.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, yes, he can get you. He can get you talking though. Like,
oh yeah,
like
Go
he gets
Game
you
Go.
talking.
God, if you get them on any show, oh my God, you
lose
lose 3 hours and you're having a good time, but you never get to point one.
I think it's always a mistake on NLG though. They always have their topic list like
I
up
know,
front, and you see it, and it's like, don't do it. Don't
when am I
show
getting
them.
the topic one again? It's been 2 hours.
Yeah.
But the way that when we have a guest though, or some of our best when we don't get to the topics, but this is usually always just the one, you know, except for this one question.
Yes, but yes. So anytime we do have a guest on, we do ask one question of them at least, and that is, what game defines you? Now, Ed, go ahead and explain what that means.
Okay, thanks for that question. So specifically, so like for me, like mine is like Zelda, and I'll explain why. So it doesn't necessarily even have to be a game that you like. It's like something that you feel defined. So for me, you know, kind of like how you talked about earlier, like Metroid, you're dropped into the game. Like for me, Zelda was like that. Like here you were, you're dropped into this world. You had to, you know, you had to figure out stuff. You learned from friends. You had to learn where to bomb. You know, it was just kind of like, you know, a total mystery, a total quest, and everything.
Right.
And so for me, like that's what, like, you know, I say that defines me as a gamer because that's when I got like I got hooked. Like to me, that was mind blowing. Nothing like that existed, and so maybe it has colored my opinions nowadays because you have to games or tutorials hold your hands all the way through, and you know it's cool to be dropped in a world and be able to like figure stuff out pre-internet and all that. So that's, you know.
Yeah, I'm just responding to Dark Creep. He's like, I'm back. What I missed? I said we solved World Hunger. I'm just kind of like,
you know, basically, which game you feel like had a major influence and kind of defines you as a gamer?
I don't know about major influence, but I mean, as far as like personality traits, there's probably two. One is a little confusing. I would say Metroid, just because I'm often dropped into projects or things that I don't know what I'm doing, and I just kind of have to keep beating my head against it and working in it until it kind of comes together or it breaks before I do, kind of thing. Because a lot of what I have to do, at least in my professional job, and a lot of how I've handled anything on my channel or anything else that I've learned as a hobby is just by actively pursuing it constantly, right? And I'll get a lot of stuff wrong, and then I'll eventually start figuring things out. Then as I start figuring things out, things start to get easier, because the nice thing about not really having anybody just holding your hand teaching you things is you learn to take little stupid things that you learned and apply them to other things, right? So it seems inconsequential and silly at first, and you're like, oh, why did that take me so long? And then the next time you run into something else, you go, I need to do this. How do I? Oh, wait, I did this and that did that. Now, what if I do this? But then I try this other new thing that I learned the other day. And then you kind of put them together, and now you got like a totally new technique, right? And I feel like Metroid kind of passes that, because you have to go out, explore, find things, and as you find new items, you have to find creative and interesting ways to use them to get to new locations, to find even more new things that you then have to use to try to figure out where you're going out next. And there's no real direction or organization or guiding principle as to where you're going, even though the game is kind of built around that kind of principle. You're still left to figure it out on your own to an extent, to a large extent. And probably the other one, Ninja Gaiden, just because it's quick to anger with a player, kind of like me with a video game.
Yeah. No, I think it's great what you said, because all three of it, like we work in IT and technology, and here's what I kind of found is that, and just keep this in mind the next time you're working with somebody who's in this profession. If they were a gamer, kind of to your point, they're not afraid to fail. They're used to trying new things, because you have that mindset of thinking, figuring things out. You're not afraid but I kind of find people who don't learn it's okay to fail. If you're not afraid to fail, if people don't learn that as a kid when they're an adult, then usually those people will develop egos and they'll become defensive and all that. So it's kind of interesting, like, because like you can ask them like, you're a gamer, aren't you? Yes. It's funny. You can just kind of, I've noticed people who are great gamers aren't afraid to fail, aren't afraid to try new things and explore, especially like Metroid. Like, dude, that's fantastic. That is like that is like the definition, because there's like so many places you can go. I mean, now of course, people speed run that, but I mean, back then we didn't know where to go or what to do or the glitches or any of
right,
or any of that awesome.
You spent 30, sometimes 40 hours trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times you even miss things, because you can beat that game and not get all the items in the game. And you can still beat it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just harder, right?
Yep.
So, and then there's lots of things too. Like they're still finding Easter eggs and things. Like I saw the other day on Twitter, they found a 2-player mode in Super Punch-Out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Ridiculous, yeah.
I'm like, this long out and you're still finding new stuff. How cool is that?
Yeah. Well, and that's those stories right there are like the things that like get me excited about, the like people looking back at history in games. So it's like, like that people are still trying all of these things all these years later to stumble upon something, that just
and they're learning from each other too.
Yeah.
That's the crux of science in general and technology, right?
Right.
Is you build on what other people learned from,
Mhm.
and you continue to build on it. And that's the other reason, to go back to the channel just a little bit, that I think the channel is in its own way important, because it brings to light sometimes stuff that I didn't know about, other people didn't know about. There's not a lot of videos on. There's not a lot of documentation on. Because occasionally I'll find something that almost nobody's done anything on. And I think almost those are more important than some of the ones that are popular, because that's a bastion of knowledge that could just get lost.
Mm.
And it's kind of a big deal to bring those to light, because anytime you take a step forward, you kind of have to look at like where you've been before. Because everybody gets influences and inspirations from the things that they played growing up, the things that they learned from, the things that they first engaged, and they build on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be cognizant, and you also have to be careful about learning from things like, say, the video game crash and stuff like that, because you see a lot of parallels today to what was going on then. So if you don't pay enough attention to what's already happened, sound like one of my old history professors for a moment, you fail at learning from it, and then you stand a chance of repeating the same stupid mistake.
Yep.
Right? And that's kind of why history is a thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I kind of look at it more as, rather than just a gaming channel or a retro gaming channel, more as like a history channel.
Yes.
Right?
That's exactly how I view it. Like that's what's so cool from your opening. Like, I'm the GeekStorian. Like, it's like that's like your layer, and you're coming out, like you're sharing with us your knowledge, and that's why I just kind of like if I imagine like the fictional, you just has like books and like all this like information back there, and you're sharing it. You know what I mean? That's kind of,
I do a lot more web searching. I use the web to my advantage. I don't have as many books as a real historian would. It's probably to my detriment. I probably need to be a little bit more like Rab. Retro Advisory Board spends a lot of time in libraries and stuff like that doing digging. Yeah. He's excellent at that. And he has found stuff and give me tidbits on things, and I'm like, where in the hell did you find that? He's like, I was in the periodicals on this one day and ran in, and I'm like, oh my god, dude.
Yeah, wow. But see, it is those little things. So like the one that you did like on Robbie the Robot, and it's kind of funny because I sent Rich I texted Rich. I'm like, dude, I didn't know that those like little cylinders, because I swear to God, growing up, those little, I didn't know that there was that game that you could stack them with the cylinder. Like,
stack it? Yeah, and I ran into that again. through watching like old AVGN episodes because he kind of covered that a little bit, but he mostly covered it in a comedic way of like, this is crap. Whereas I kind of wanted to go more into like how the game sort of worked. And so I wanted to do it more of a documentary style, but a lot of like my understanding of that, the base understanding of that came from AVGN and then doing some digging on it afterwards. Right. But it's like everything else, man. Sometimes you'll find somebody just making fun of something. You're like, wait a minute. What is that? Right? I didn't even know what a U-Force was until I saw him goofing around with it, along with that like voice command thing that had the little light thing on it that he could screen fire at that I can't remember the name of right now, and a bunch of other things that he did. And I think he did an episode with that and Rod the Robot. He made himself like a Power Rangers mech thing out of it or something stupid, which is brilliant.
I've seen those cylinders, but I didn't know everyone plays with gyro. And so to me, like I love things that are like really geeky, and I'll like there's no point to it except for the love of knowing it, like speed running, right? Like if you think about like there's no point in just like maybe beating a game like for the best time, like but then again, like there's no actual point unless you love it. And it's fascinating how people will go through and like memorize and try to be the best, and and what you're sort of sharing.
And they'll find cool glitches.
Yes.
There's entire channels dedicated to showing you how certain glitches work. And dude, the math and the understanding that data mining they had to do to be able to pull some of this off, literally they are frame perfect glitches. And I'm like, that is insane.
Like I guess I like videos with things like there's no point to it except because you can, and that's what's what's awesome. Like that's what I love about it, because you can. Like somebody decided to go down this rabbit hole and they figured out all this like cool stuff, and that's kind of what you do. Like you put it into those 5 to 10 minute bites and all that. Which it's
me kind of doing a brain dump in 5 or 6 minutes, and some of them I pare down, and some of them I'm going, wow, I can't believe I got 5 minutes out of that. I am channeling my inner windbag. Congratulations to me. I got to 5 minutes.
It's one of those things. As a content creator, sometimes I wonder, like sometimes I'll think I want this video to be under 10 minutes, and sometimes I've had ones where I've rambled on for 20 or 30. I'm like, listen, people can fast forward if they want to watch it. They do if they don't.
And a lot of people watch them in like couple minute stints anyway. Like I find a lot of times the most videos, even if it's only like a 5 minute video, you'll have people engage for maybe 50% per click, even on a 5 minute video. It's just how people watch content, right? So it's just kind of how it is, and it's fine as long as people are enjoying it. I don't really care how you watch it. I'm just glad you're enjoying some of what I do, and the fact that this one's done as well, this channel's done as well as it's done, is shocking to me, because my first channel at a year, at the end of the first year of really putting out content, and keep in mind, I had that channel since like March of the year I started it in. I didn't start putting content out on it till like November of that year. And it took me until like November of the next year, almost December, into December, to hit 125 subs.
No, I feel your pain, because I'm like now like at 460, and so but that's what's great about YouTube though. You can put out one video like and that's why I mentioned the triple graphics, where you hit on that, everyone's interested, and it just like takes off, and and it's kind of like the lottery, like that, where like you have that topic, and it's like all the stars align, and it's just it's awesome. So that's
and now the GameCube one's doing pretty well. People seem to really be enjoying that one, and I'm finding people subscribing to like weird content that I do. Like I've had people subscribe. I actually had somebody subscribe for the Batter Up, and I'm like, man, I can't believe I got somebody to subscribe for the Batter Up.
Well, there you go.
I don't know what that says about my channel or you, but welcome.
Because like
I'm glad you're here. You're my people.
Well, the other thing too in the retro space is that it's like it's so difficult to find something new, right? So like let's say like some content creator they talk about like the Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection. Like depending on the person, like if that's already been covered, if somebody else covers it, then I may not watch their video, because you're like, dude, I've already seen 2 videos on it. I like, it's like me even like the person, you're like, but I don't care to know, the same stuff. So it's so difficult in the retro space to find that niche and to do something different.
Yeah.
So it's
and I think I that's one of the things I'm happy with on the channel, because I spent And honestly, I worked with Panda a lot on this too. I spent a long time because he's like, okay, he's like, I kind of recommend you start a second channel, and I'm like, man, I could see where you're going, and this makes sense, and I have an idea of what I want to move there, because the main stuff that I was having the most fun making was the history content, but it also took a really long time to make, and so I knew that was going to be a struggle if I were to start a channel just based off history content, because sometimes I'll spend, and sometimes it's a struggle to write, because sometimes I'll spend a half a day writing, and I might get like maybe 100 lines. I might get a script written. I might only get like 20 lines written, either because I just can't focus, I can't think of what I want to say, I can't think of how I want to phrase it, or I'm just struggling to find the content. But what I wanted to do was to find a way to be able to engage with the audience at least 1 to 2 videos a week on the regular, right? So I'm like, what if I go through and I try to make shorter videos? What can I do to make those things that I feel like I could edit in a week and get out, and maybe even get ahead? Because if I can get ahead by a couple of weeks, I can have those loading up, and then while I'm doing that, while I have a little bit of breathing room, I can work on the longer videos. So I can take my time. And so those are the big, what I consider the big show pieces, are the ones that I put up on Friday, because those are the ones I'm trying to take extra time and effort on, right? Those are supposed to be the ones that bring in more people, and hopefully they stick around and find this other stuff that they like too. It keeps them engaged until I can get them another big chunk of content that I'm fairly certain they're going to like, right? Yeah. So that's when I started going, okay, well, let's talk about what I want the channel to be, right? So the original thesis was kind of looking at gaming from the past and how it affects and influences modern gaming and gaming as it moves forward, right? So it's supposed to be building on historical context and in a lot of ways relating it to current concepts or trends in what's going on in gaming, or at least learning how people try things. And if you look at a lot of the oddities and moments, you can still see that, even though they're just short snippets of historical pieces, right? So you look at something like the Nematron that I haven't done the video on yet, but was built solely for entertainment based off a strategic game played in ancient China in 1901, which was basically like a pick-up sticks game. You could pick up any number of sticks you wanted on a play. The idea was to either pick up the last item on the playing field or to not pick up the last item on the playing field. And so you had to think ahead as to what the other person might do and calculate out how many you were going to pick up to make sure you didn't get stuck or that you could get that last item, and how they mathematically express that. So that's sort of the genesis on how you start building games that you can interact with from a computational perspective. So how do you build that? How does that move into, say, noughts and crosses, where now you're playing something almost like tic-tac-toe, which kind of correlates a little bit. Then you build onto stuff like that into, say, the Brown box, which becomes the Magnavox Odyssey, which eventually leads into the Fairchild, which gives people the brain idea of carts. And now you have the Atari, and then you go from Atari to NES and all these other things. All these things are building blocks. It's how science has worked, right? Mm-hmm. And so you see the reason I wanted to start so early and why I really didn't think the channel would go very far in the beginning is because I'm covering stuff that's so freaking old. People might not give a crap.
True.
And it was a risk when I did it. And I put some other stuff out there that wasn't so risky, or some stuff that I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to, the TurboGrafx one was a whim. I'm like, okay, I want to get all my old content moved. I'm just moving the content over. You know what, I'll just drop this one. I feel like this one did okay. I like this video. And I just want it on the channel. I just want to move it this week. And then that thing went crazy. And I'm like, what the heck just happened? Like, literally, I was watching it just like, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Like, I have no clue what's going on right now. And so I tried experimenting with that, which I can't replicate it, which sucks. Because I had an idea, because that's why the Saturn one launched after it. Because I'm like, okay, here's another obscure one. It's similar in tone, it's similar in feel. I think it has the same vibe, and it hits the same notes. That same kind of niche audience that would have gravitated to the TurboGrafx, I think would have natively gravitated to, say, the Saturn, right?
Mhm.
If I'd had a Jaguar video, I would have done that one instead.
Sure.
But I didn't have a Jaguar video, so I'm like, let's do Saturn, right? Because everybody knows Nintendo, everybody knows Sega. Let's go with one of Saturn's least penetrative systems in the market, right? The one they really flipped up on. That it just didn't get the market penetration and has become a huge retro darling, kind of like the TurboGrafx. And it started off looking good, and never took off quite the same way the other one did.
Hmm.
And here I look at the GameCube one thing, and okay, I just put my GameCube one out because I like this video and it's fun, and I like the GameCube. And it's kind of growing on its own too in weird ways. And so I can't figure out what people want. I'm just happy you guys are hanging out.
So you know what's funny about what's funny about that whole GameCube thing, because like I kind of felt like looking at it, like just how it was weird. It looked like a kid's toy. I mean, I did end up buying
that
one.
Was a huge downside for me when it came out. I thought it looked too kiddie. I wasn't super impressed with the lineup. I didn't see the point in Luigi's Mansion until I played it. And then when I played it, I go, God, I got to eat so much crow in this game. This game's amazing.
See, and that's what irritates me about modern Nintendo. I'm like, Nintendo, you don't need a gimmick. Just make good games. That's why I think I commented on your video. Like, even the Switch isn't sure if it wants to be a handheld or like a stationary console, because it's kind of funny because that like on Steam Deck and stuff, like you can emulate like Switch games and things that run better because they're trying. You know, it's that balance of conserving power. So that's what's and that's what's kind of funny. I actually think you said like Nintendo, like you said like Nintendo, like they lost touch with their audience, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I thought around that game.
I feel like the Switch actually knows exactly what its audience is. We're just not it. Because here's what the Switch audience is in a nutshell. And you can watch the commercials and you can see exactly what their audience is. They wanted to hit a generation that's constantly on the move and having to go back and forth from work to home constantly. They spend a lot of time commuting, sometimes in public transport, particularly in Japan. Public transport, subways, stuff like that is huge, right? You don't spend a lot of time in your car driving yourself. In other countries, you spend a lot of time on public transport. So that's what they were seeing going around. They're seeing young people moving around. They've got their phones with them. They're playing games on there. Well, what if you could take your system that you're playing your game at home, just pull it out of the dock and continue to play it on your commute to work, and then take it back and put it right back in the dock and have it on your big screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For the young audience that's constantly having to go and push and work late hours, and especially like a Japanese audience that works tons of hours and sometimes spends nights in hotel rooms that are basically smaller than my bedroom that I'm sitting in right now is my computer room, the Switch is a brilliant device.
Yeah.
And it works perfectly for what it's designed for in that context.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you start getting to like America, it seems tonally confused, because it's not powerful enough to be a full-on console, and it's a little underpowered for what we consider a handheld now that the Steam Deck is out.
Yep.
Right. But only in the context of the Steam Deck. Before that, it's probably one of the most powerful handhelds that's ever existed.
Mm-hmm. I can agree with that.
Yeah. But it's crazy that like now, like in Japan, that like the Steam Deck and everything is going over there in China, for those reasons that you.
And I think it'll do really well over there too.
Yes.
Yeah. I can agree with that as well. I mean, so I when I think about the Switch, I always think about
you're frozen.
Am I?
Yeah.
Oh crap! I am.
Yeah, you're frozen a little.
Sorry.
But yeah, so when I think about the Switch, though, I always think about the Vita actually.
I like the Vita and
Sony,
and the PSP. Both of those were good.
100%. But Sony kind of made a promise with the advent of the Vita, and that was to bring your entertainment at home with you, right? But it was
that didn't execute real great.
That's right.
That was the first attempt at that. You're right.
And then they abandoned it. Well, in America, they did.
It was 100% an awesome idea. I loved my Vita. I played it. It's probably next to the Evercade now. It is probably the handheld I had most in my hand. I had a PSP. I played the wheels off of that thing, but it wasn't like the Vita. I adored that thing. Because it was almost there, right? And what I wanted them to do so badly was really lean into the independent stuff, right? All that stuff that was on PS3 could have easily run on the Vita, right? They could have just direct ported all those games, and they did. They did actually make some versions of those PS3 arcade, like or PS3 network titles, and kind of get that over there. But it just wasn't quite the same, right?
Yeah,
And
what they
Nintendo
lacked
looking
is
at
what
that
the Steam
idea-
Deck has done well.
Right.
They needed your account to be visible on your Vita,
Yep.
so that you could just download a lot of those games and check and make sure they're compatible, they're cross-compatible,
Yep.
and just download them and go.
100%. And you know what? It just seems to me like Nintendo just watched that happen, right? Because the Vita got really popular in Japan. It was super popular there.
I think it still is.
And yeah, I mean, like people love the thing still, but it's one of those things where like Nintendo had to have looked at that and was like, well, our handhelds, and our home consoles aren't necessarily that, like they're not that much more powerful. So what if we just made one that was the handheld that fulfilled the promise, right? And I think you're very, very honest. I think that's exactly how the Switch development cycle went.
Well, and here's
and what a slam
I'll
dunk.
throw out to you that might break your brain a little bit on how I think they finally got to this, because on my GameCube video, I mentioned that the GameCube controller design was meant so you could separate it and you could use it for motion controls.
Okay, yeah.
That was the original design. That eventually became the Wiimote. So they had the seeds of the Wii from the GameCube.
Yeah.
And then they started seeing people messing with their phones, and they're like, what if we gave you a console tablet?
That had a big giant tablet as a controller, yeah.
Right. So that's where the Wii U came from.
Yep.
And then you take the Wii
Low-key
and the
love
Wii
that
U
thing,
concept and you blend that together.
Mm-hmm.
There's your Switch.
Yep.
They have tonally trained their audience toward the Switch since the Wii.
That's true. Yeah.
That's true.
But
Yeah,
So they've been planning that. They had really almost been planning the Switch for much longer than you think. Whether or not they really intended it or not, that's where they were kind of driving it all along when you look at it.
Yeah. But so what's interesting, and it's funny that when I'm glad that you talked on the video, because like that, when we're talking about the downfalls, because I think everyone especially kids now forget around that time, like when DVD players were expensive when they were like a few $100s.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only like Nintendo, they went with the small discs for to make it harder to pirate, but I'm glad you mentioned it. They didn't want to have to pay like the licensing fees to Sony and Philips. Since
I didn't even think about that until I did that video, and I'm like, oh, this makes total sense.
Yeah,
now.
but
so
I
makes
think
so much more sense.
But that was part of their downfall, because had they, and I get it, like they were going to try to do a console together, but they had a little bit of an ego, and I think that maybe hurt them as well, because I mean, how many of you, like I can remember back then, like you're sitting with another, it's like, hey honey, DVD players are $200. Well, hey, for $250 I can get this console that, you know what I mean? Like it was easier to sell your spouse on to get it.
And they did the same thing with the PS3. That's how they got a good market penetration with Blu-ray.
Yeah. Yep. Because remember, like Microsoft with that HD DVD, whatever format.
Yeah, it was HD DVD versus Blu-ray, and Microsoft couldn't get Blu-ray because Sony had a big stake in that particular technology anyway. They were one of the part creators for it, kind of like the DVD format before that, and even CD format. They were a big part of that as well, which I didn't even realize until I started doing that video. It was them and Philips that made CDs in the first place. So they've been big on most of the major media pushes since disc media has existed, right? And so that was another extension of what they had. So yeah, Microsoft tried to counter them with HD DVD.
Yeah, I remember that was laughable. Oh, so one funny thing, and of course we always have to talk about Evercade for 5 minutes. So can you like how
that's fine. I like Evercade just fine. Let's go.
Yeah, no, but like I think like Pete said, like Evercast too. But no, it's like funny, like how we talk about, hey, you have the game, you can play it on the handheld, and then you can play it home with console. Like Evercade has done that by keeping everything on the on the cart. So I thought that was just kind of. But what's interesting about perception and everything, and all that. And so actually, I want to ask your opinion on this. Like the perception, everything. I think up until now that like Blaze has got Capcom, like yes, there's some controversy about it being embedded or whatever. But now
I'm a little annoyed about that personally because I don't really want to have. I don't really feel like I should have to buy the new handheld to be able to play those. That's just me personally. I mean, I get kind of why they're doing it, but it's still a little annoying. But go ahead.
Gotcha. So, well, yeah, I was like, yes, but I think, but because perception is everything, right? Because before that, I think some people think, oh, well, here's a company, they don't really have any, they don't really have any big retro games. All they have are like these little weird games we've never heard of and some indie games. That like people who don't know about Evercade, that's what I think their perception is. But like, ooh, Capcom, and then so
right,
you know what I mean. So now that raises the perception, which they actually have some real games. Like I'm serious. Like that's like people outside of that, they may not look at these as real games. Of course, we do.
Yeah,
but I think so like I kind of think so. Perception is everything. So and that's why I think it's kind of funny how some people don't realize that it's not necessarily like timing is everything, perception. And so I don't what do you kind of what are your thoughts about the whole like them getting Capcom and having it be exclusive and not like in physical media and all that stuff.
I like the idea that they're getting it as physical media. I would have liked to have seen it as a collection. And part of the reason I would have liked to have seen it as a normal cart style collection is one, so you could more easily put it in, say, the VS, and it would have boosted VS sales. You could have played it on the original Evercade, more than likely, and you could have played it there. And I think that would have been a great win for them to be able to sell things across the board rather than just focusing on the EXP, which, while I think is a really cool looking unit, I don't play. If I play things on my Evercade, which I haven't done in a long time and I need to get back into, I'm more tempted to do it on my VS unless I'm using the Namco collection. And the only reason I'm playing the Namco collection on my Evercade is because I can't play it on my VS. If they fix that, I probably wouldn't boot up the handheld hardly at all. I would plug in the VS and play the VS. Just because on the VS, I can plug in any controller I want to. And I know you love the Evercade controller they gave with it.
Yeah.
I don't. I find it too bricky and a little uncomfortable. And I don't like the bumper buttons on it as well as I do other controllers. So I'll hook up an 8-bit controller and configure it in like 2 seconds.
Well,
and I'll use that because that's my comfort zone, right? I like that controller. I like its layout. So I'll use that. And that's the advantage of the VS is I can do that, right? Whereas the EXP, I'm kind of locked into it in the handheld mode. And what if some of the games don't take Ghost and Goblins Resurrection? I can play that on my Switch in handheld mode, but it's too tiny. I find the sprites too small and it doesn't have the same impact. It's a little harder to see Arthur. I wish the screen was just a hairbreadth bigger, so much so I've almost double dipped on it on my Steam Deck just to get it a little bit bigger so that I can see it better and still play it in a handheld mode. And I'm concerned some of the Capcom games might fall into that same problem, to where either you have to do that or you're tied with a cable going out from your EXP to your TV to play it, to find it comfortable to play those titles. I think that's the other downside to it. So, other than that, it's great that it's there. The fact that they got Capcom period is huge for Blaze. And I love it.
Yeah. So
it's just minor critiques on something it's really a huge win for them as a company.
Yeah. See, and that's no, your feedback is fair. What I don't like is some people just say people have said like it's the stupidest thing they've ever done. I'm like, really? But here's it's interesting as it comes down to licensing. So, and I'm glad you brought up the Namco collection. So, at least once a week, I like just to go into the PS4 store. And I just, I like to, we're Canadian. I like just to see what's on sale. And so what's interesting is they have like the Namco Museum, like 1 and 2, but it's like a different one, that's digital. And like they want $20, which for me, like you can maybe get like 8 Nintendo games. Like for digital, like that's gross. I won't pay that. But it was on sale for $5. So I got both of them. And what cracks me up about Namco is, but when you start those games up, dude, you have to like scroll through like 6 pages of licensing agreement. And so
I hate that, dude.
Yeah, but so what's interesting, and they have we have some games, we have some different games. I might do a video, but what's interesting is I think some properties like Capcom and Namco, they're very protective, right? Like I think they're worried that like all of a sudden, if the Evercade takes off and everybody's buying it on that console, then they might lose out like on the big hitters like Nintendo, Sony. So I think that's what at least which is it's stupid, but I think that's what they. I think that's what they think. And I think the reason also why Capcom did this is because they were guaranteed that, at least they were going to sell like 5,000 units. You know what I mean?
Right. No, that makes sense. And your latter point makes more sense than anything else, because then they have a guaranteed sales of X amount. So they're like, well, what if we put it on this? We already have this many sales. And they're like, okay, that's enough. Right? And they put it on there for that reason. And that might be, and if it does well enough on there and there's enough demand for it, they might actually start bringing things in as like regular collections to the console, which would be great if they took that step, because having something closer to like, see, the Capcom beat 'em up collection that you can plug into your VS, and then you can do a save state and you can throw it into like your Evercade or your EXP. You can take it on the go, and something that's more comfortable in a smaller form factor than the Switch. Because the downside to the Switch and the Steam Deck is they're a little big, right?
Yeah.
They don't fit in your pocket great. They don't fit in your backpack quite so great. If you're carrying like a computer bag like I carry, they're a little awkward to have around, and they're more conspicuous too when you're sitting in an office for 8 hours and then you're lugging this big thing into the break room to play it. Whereas if you have something like an Evercade, it's pretty easy to just take into the break room, play it, put it in your back pocket or whatever, go back to your desk and put it away, right? So it's a lot more convenient for, I guess, a more, I'd say, adult corporate experience than, say, a Switch or a Steam Deck would be, right?
Just to grab and go.
Yeah.
Funny
that gives
that
it
you
an
mention
advantage.
Because like my original like Game Boy SP, like it so it has like the unmodded screen, which the only good side about that is the battery lasts forever. So I think I got like one of those like mega batteries, and I only have to charge the thing once. But to your point, like that, like I can just like, it can fold up. I can put it in my pocket. And then I can like, I'm not scared to put it in my pocket. Like I'll put it in my pocket, my phone. Like I know it's like pretty hardy, but if I just want something to kind of play, I don't have to worry about that. It's if battery is going to die on it or anything, and I can always put that. So portability. That was a long way of me saying portability does matter. But yeah, and then to the other point, like if Capcom, if they came out, let's say with a collection one, and it was like even if it was the exact same as what was on the EXP, maybe they added one or two different games. Bunch of like I know, like me and Rich, we would buy it again, just to be able to play that like on the VS, and I know a bunch of people would. So yeah, maybe they're
I could, with the cost of those cards, I could easily see, like, even if I picked up an EXP, which I've been on the fence about picking up because I don't play my handheld enough, I could definitely see double dipping it, because being able to play it on the VS, and then maybe even hand it off to somebody else to play on the base Evercade. That's great.
Yeah. So funny that you mentioned handhelds, because like when I got my VS, I put it up, I didn't even touch it till it gathered, didn't even touch but recently I've gone back, and again for the Namcos, but I've been playing some of those games, and there's just something different, when you're in the mood, can you just to kind of play something on a handheld. I just kind of wish that I'm hoping with like the better screen and the better resolution, and then we'll be able to, it won't take 5 hours to charge. So there's something different. Right. Like I'll go back and forth. I'm like, no, I'd like to play this here. Or sometimes I'm like, yeah, so that is the great thing about the Steam Deck, because I hate having to be in my office sometimes just to play games. Which
well,
like
and the other thing with the Evercade
Survivors.
that I'll say is a big advantage for them right now is because of the nature of their handheld, and then the nature of the games they play. The battery life is way better than most of the handhelds on the market.
Yeah.
So if you want to play something for a fairly substantial amount of time, I feel like you can play the Evercade for a longer time than you could play, say, a Switch or a Steam Deck.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So, I mean, it's great for that.
Yeah. And then you'll get the better screen. See, the thing I do like about the Capcom collection built in. Well, so like for me, and I think a lot of people, like Capcom is like, they haven't made a bad game in my, it's something that's like timeless in that selection. So for me, to your point, Nick, about it being like a grab and go, like if I don't know what to play, like that'll always be there. And it's like a solid selection of games,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
yes,
I
you can't
totally
play Street
get
Fighter
that.
2 players, but whatever. I don't have anyone.
Well, and I mean, that's the advantage of some of the Evercade cards in general, is because you've got so many games on there. Like if you were just put one or two cards in a bag, for the most part, you can find something you want to play for like 30, 40 minutes or so, right?
Yeah, sure.
And like a lunch break or whatever. Because generally you've got anywhere, except for like the Tanglewood one where it had like Tanglewood and Alien
Xenocrisis.
Xenocrisis, that's it. I've got that one, and I can never remember the name of Xenocrisis for whatever reason. I don't know why. Other than that one, you've usually got somewhere like around 6 games or more on most of these cards, right?
For sure.
So, you put 2 of those in there, and you've got like 12 to sometimes 20 plus games, especially if you put like an Atari on or television collection, and you're like big into those consoles. Well, Lord, you can have like 20 of those games on a cart.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, I've been playing it. I love the Atari collections. I've been playing a lot of those. Those have been my go-to, like Food Fight. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's good stuff. But and then the cool thing about this like Capcom announcement is seeing kind of like the after effects. This might probably be something we talk about on Saturday, but what I've been seeing lately in the headlines. So like I do like generic Google searches every other day or whatever. I search some stuff on the Evercade, I search some stuff on Atari VCS, and like this stuff that I'm following, right? And it just so happened that today when I did the Evercade search, GameSpot had an article today about the Evercade, and it was about the EXP, and notably, they were talking about, of course, the Capcom announcement, but also notably, they were also talking about Best Buy pre-orders going up live in the U.S., which is the second time that's ever happened where there is a relationship directly with Best Buy in the U.S. and the Evercade. So it was weird because when the first relationship happened, it was with the handheld, and they were putting the premium bundles out, and that was it. And then like a couple carts came out in the retail stores, and then they kind of just vanished. But for them to be coming back to Blaze and having them have it as a pre-order, this is something that's very interesting to me, because that might mean there is a turning of the tide. Maybe Blaze is hitting that right note because they've got that big bright spotlight now with the Capcom collection that's going to be embedded in this thing. So,
dude, I didn't know they could pre-order Best Buy. That is huge.
I mean, they're no slouch as a retailer. I mean, obviously, they're not Walmart, they're not Costco.
Yeah, I was about to say they're not Walmart, but I mean, they're still a pretty big retailer, and they're still one of the main big box stores to go to for electronics.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, people actually still think video games when they think about Best Buy in the U.S. So that is a thing. So I was like, hey, you know what? That's great, because the more people see this thing, the more people see, oh wait, there's an ecosystem, because Blaze is very good at reminding you, like when you open the package, like, oh, there's more stuff. There's like the cartridge checklist. There's reminders on VS products that there's a handheld. I'm sure in the box in the EXP they'll be like, by the way, there's the VS. Like that kind of thing. So, more people that are jumping in the community are way, obviously better. But it was cool to see that little tidbit.
Yeah, and going back to the packaging on that and how they remind you of stuff, their packaging in general, when I bought like my Evercade handheld, I was super impressed with the way that thing was packed. They fit so much stuff in such a small amount of space. I'm like, whoever did your box design is genius, because this is organized perfectly. It's compact, which makes your shipping cheaper, and you can get a lot of product in there. Yeah. You save, the customer saves. This is brilliant. This is really well done. It's kind of an undersold part of the way that they do their business. I feel like it's just how cleanly and not only cleanly but professionally and invitingly that they package stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it is a really cool design aesthetic that they've got there, and like on all of their products, it seems like the packaging itself, like warrants a more premium design or a premium product that's inside, right? Even from the original handheld to the EXP.
So and I'm glad you all brought this up. Here's the great thing. Like, if you look at something like Arcade 1-Up, like one of the reasons why they started off with Pac-Man, or they do, because that's a household name. So couldn't you imagine, let's say like at a Sam's Club, if there was like an EXP sitting next to an Arcade 1-Up, and let's say if they're able to drop that price point to like $125, and you get it automatically like with 18 built-in Capcom games, dude. I mean. Yeah. That could fly off the shelves, because I know, and sometimes I've seen some of these comments where Evercade, like, if you don't know, it can be a little bit difficult to get, because I think an outsider perception is, who's this weird British company that's off in the UK? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
and a lot of people don't know about Funstock. And I really started digging into Funstock primarily because of Rich. He's like, oh, well, here's where I get all my stuff. I'm like, oh.
Or video game. Well, see,
and I'd seen them once before when I originally bought my VS, because that's where the pre-order went up for them. But I didn't think about them again until Rich mentioned it. I'm like, wow, they've still got all the cards.
Yeah.
Because it's much easier to find them there than it is to find them on, say, Amazon.
Oh, screw
Right.
Amazon. Yeah, but see
Yeah,
the problem.
I mean,
the problem though, and the downside. So Funstock, like they'll have everything, but you're gonna pay more, and then you at least have to spend like $40. You know,
Mhm.
it's like you can't buy one thing, but like Video Games Plus, which I have to give Pete credit for, like they're in Canada and they don't have that limit, and they give you free shipping, or you can pay like $3.50 Canadian, which is like $2. And you know, and I like too that it'll come through like USPS versus like DHL, because like when I get that confirmation email of my limited edition EXP, I'll be like watching out the window like a hawk, because it'll be
Right.
DHL will get there fast, but then they're going to put it on your door. Versus like with my other carts, I've had, you know, I can go check that like in the mailbox, it's locked.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Funstock for me, well, I like Funstock just fine, and I have ordered a lot of stuff there for the Evercade in particular. Their shipping for me is takes forever. It'll sometimes take me well over a month to get a cart from them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, is this ever going to show up? Like, and it gets hard to track, right? Because it goes from like British Post to like United States Post, and then you lose track of it for like 2 weeks, and you're like, where did it go?
Yeah, it disappears and it comes. Yeah, no, it's kind of fun. And then I know, like, for a while, like, it wasn't just Video Games Plus, it was also Songbird, like, everything just to Canada, there was like a delay, and so that's when I ended up going back into the renovation collection from Funstock that I had to wait forever for. Then that cart was bust, but they sent me, you know, I made a little video of showing how it was. Then they sent me another one, but then I had to wait another few weeks. Like, what's weird, like with customs, you never know. Like it just sat in Chicago for a week, just because of whatever. And then once it got through there, like on its way to Texas, then things were quick. But I'm like, man, what's it doing? You know, what's it doing there?
It's just sitting there back of the bus in customs, because there's not anything they're going to find particularly wrong with a video game cart. I mean, you're smuggling contraband into the country, unless you call retro games contraband. They might one day. Who knows?
Huh. So in the background, I've been doing a little bit of like fact check. I guess is Pete. Are you suggesting that the EXP pre-order on Best Buy's website is through a third-party seller? Because I'm not seeing that on the US side of things.
Or was he saying that in general? Or was he saying that like in general, like you can't buy like an Evercade directly from Blaze? It's all through it's all through resellers.
Oh yeah. Well,
maybe that's what.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Because I mean, it's like
well, yeah, I mean that would make sense, because I've never seen them sell directly on their site.
Yeah.
Just like it's always through like another retailer, right?
Yeah, like you can go to Valve.com, you can buy the Steam Deck directly through them. Like Switch, you can get it like a million different ways. Yeah, that is kind of weird. Like you can get it from Nintendo or whoever. Yeah, that is. And maybe but then again, they're a smaller company. Maybe that's why they are able. They don't have to actually host all that. But yeah,
well, not a lot of companies started selling off their own site for a long time. That's kind of been a more recent development, I feel like, because like Steam sells the Steam Deck directly through them. You can buy PlayStation directly through PlayStation, but the PS5 was the first time I remember PlayStation ever selling you a PlayStation from their site. Other than that, I remember having to go to another store to pick it up. I wasn't able to pick it up from PlayStation side or reserve it from there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me not finding the right sites.
What is, I mean, specifically for the PlayStations and all that?
Well, like PlayStation and Xbox and all those, I would always find those at other retailers. You'd always be like your Target, your Walmart, your Best Buy was where you would pick those up, or Amazon or whatever, right? It would be some sort of like, larger box retailer or a mom and pop shop that managed to get a small quantity of them is where you would generally pick those up. You wouldn't order them directly from, like, say, Microsoft's website.
Right.
True.
Or reserve them through there. Same way with PlayStation, not until like this generation that I recall for the most part.
I can kind of agree with you there. Like, I mean, or maybe that people didn't know that you could, but on the back end, because like for Xbox One and PlayStation 4 for sure, and even the Vita, on Sony.com you could get just about all that stuff and be able to pre-order it. But the implication was that you were always encouraged to just go to your friendly neighborhood retailer and get your pre-order through them.
Right. And I think part of that was them keeping good ties with the retailers.
Right.
Because they still sell more to the masses than the website. So they wanted to more or less get you to go to those retailers so the retailers would continue to stock their product.
Yeah.
Because if they're not there, then 90% of their audience goes away. Right.
Yeah. And I think now it's because, specifically with Sony, like they got to move units, and they're the first. They know they're the first ones that get them in hand, and just logistics wise, I mean, they're not going to be able to just. Oh well, here we've produced a whole bunch, so instead of moving them right now through us, we're going to put them on a boat and then ship them all to the retailers, so that in 2 months they'll have them on the shelf. No, they're not doing that because they're producing them in such a small quantity. They're just firing them off the line, right away, right through there. And I think the retailer here, or retailer there might cry foul, but in this day and age, you got to get that stuff out.
And I think a lot of that changed with the pandemic, right? Because you had the way movies were delivered change. You had the way consoles were sold change, because you got to remember, high pandemic, that's when they started selling those things off their website and really pushing it, because people couldn't go to stores.
Right.
And they still needed to sell the item somehow.
Right.
So that became the way that they worked around it. And I think there's been, while it's still an option, and there's been a lot less push of it now that retailers are open again, because again, they want to keep that good working relationship with their retail partners. Yeah. And justifiably so.
No, that makes sense. But see, I think the other reason too why Valve also sold direct is because then they don't have to pay, like they keep 100% of that profit. And I think that's why you can get like the base, like, Steam Deck for $400, because they don't, they don't have to pay anyone else. They get,
right. And I think part of it too comes with the fact that they don't have any physical items for you to buy.
Yeah.
Right. They don't have any accessories for you to buy. They don't have any games that you can just buy in the store. Sure, you can buy a Steam card, a gift card, but that's pretty minimal incentive for big box retailer store to want to keep those in stock, because the attachment rate after the main unit itself, which isn't going to make them a lot of money, is really low, because they make their money off the games and accessories. They get better profit margins off of those than they do the consoles. That's the reason, keep the console in there so they can sell you the spare controller or the charging dot that maybe you didn't get, or what about this cable or that cable that you might need? Well, hey, we've got all these games. Why don't you just pick up a couple of games on your way out? It's why they won't entirely get rid of like physical games, or don't want to get rid of them just yet as much as they do and they don't. One hand, they want to get rid of them because they want control over the product from inception from cradle to the grave, basically. And having it digitally gives them the most control that way. And they don't, because it hurts them with big box retailers, because it's one less item that the retailer gets a profit on at the store, because they don't make any money off of digital sales, right? Unless they're the one that sells you the key card. And why would you do that when you can just find a cool sale on the PlayStation Store or Game Pass or whatever, right? So why would you go to them? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So it becomes kind of like a double-edged sword.
Yeah. So,
speaking of the Steam store, and this is one of the. So recently, I don't own a Steam Deck, but I've gotten back into kind of playing those little indies, dude. For $3, Vampire Survivors. It's an early access, and it's just, think of like roguelike Diablo and all, but like I forgot, like that's like really the only that's the one thing I do like about like PC. It's the one platform where you can get those weird, cool experimental games.
Yeah, there's another one that I think you would really like. I gotta find. I think it's called. God, I can't never remember the name of it. I don't know why. It's basically, if you like Star Fox, you would have fun with this game.
Ooh, nice.
It's called EX Zodiac.
Okay.
It basically takes pretty much all of its cues from like Space Harrier and Star Fox, because it's primarily Star Fox, but you'll get these data cards in the levels, and then you go into a Space Harrier mode. That opens up Space Harrier style stages.
That is
cool. You can play as well.
They've got a demo too.
Yeah, it's a really cool game. It's a lot of fun. It runs good on the Steam Deck. It runs good on PC. It's still in early access. It's about $12. And it's only got about 6 stages, and they're still
dude, it's
actively working
$9.99.
on it.
Very cool.
Cool. Oh, this is totally. Yeah, I'm totally getting a Star Fox vibe.
Yeah, it's very much Star Fox. You don't have your squad like you do at Star Fox. You have just the one ship. You don't have other like pilots flying along with you, so it loses a little bit of that character. But it's still very much a spiritual successor to Star Fox.
Dude,
It's
that
totally
is my
worth
wish
at
list.
least
I'm gonna
checking out
download
the demo.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Very cool.
Yeah. But see, that's what I'm like. I love that, and what I've noticed too with like a lot of those games, if you get it while it's in early access, I find that it's generally cheaper.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Sometimes it'll either just be cheaper, or you get one thing that's neat about early access, and again, it's another double-edged sword. You get to kind of see the development process a little bit, because you see the incremental releases, you see the stuff that they're fixing, you see the stuff that changes, what's working, what's not working, what gameplay goes here, what gameplay goes there, what kind of goes out the window as they kind of build the final product. And a lot of times too, you get it a little bit cheaper because you're getting cut a little bit of a deal because you're having to go through those growing pains at the same time, right? So it's both an advantage and a disadvantage to you.
Yeah.
I most time on the early access stuff I've seen stuff that stayed in early access like forever. Like my wife loves this game called 7 Days to Die.
Yes, yeah, I've got that.
She
Yes.
loves that game, and that thing has been in early access forever. I don't think it'll ever come out of early access. They just keep building on it. But
Yeah, I
I mean,
think
it's
that's one of
not
those
that
ones where
expensive.
I
And
waited-
it's cool, and they keep working on it.
I waited
Yeah.
for it to be on sale for $9.99. It's real. It's fun. It's fun if you can play it with people. See, people must. And that's the thing I love about Steam. I can, unlike some other online stores, I can still play games that I bought like 10 years ago and all that. So,
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have Humble Bundle.
Yeah,
you have
that's
all
one of the advantages to it is like out of all the stores, it's the one I often and that I'm the most comfortable with buying digitally, partially because it's familiar because I've been using it for so long, and partially because there's rarely a game that I've bought in my past library that I can't boot up on a modern PC and play.
Yeah.
Because they always try to make sure that things continue to work moving forward when you purchase it, which is a huge advantage, particularly in the PC gaming market, where, especially in the 90s, I don't know how many of you guys remember old LucasArts games, but they would support it through like maybe one OS generation past where they conceptualized the game, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Like they don't support it anymore, and it just doesn't run. Or you have to do a lot of work to make it run. And so Steam was kind of a fix for that kind of thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Very
It's funny
cool
you're still frozen, but it's all good.
Yeah, I'm leery about jumping out and jumping back in. I can do that. Yeah, let me
It's
do
all
that.
good.
Just so I'm unfrozen. I'll be right back.
All right, cool.
Just do that a smoke bomb.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, he'll come in and jump out. He's back in. He's back.
There we go. Okay.
Yay!
Very cool. But yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, oh, you're jumping back in, and I was just about to say, like, oh, cool. Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, Rose we're wrapping up. I should at least be able to like move.
Exactly. Yes.
I figured you guys
Yes,
didn't want to run
for sure,
much past
for
an
sure.
hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
And like
No,
I said,
it's
I'm
all-
at your disposal however long you guys wanted to run. It's been a great conversation. So I'm totally game for whatever you guys want to do.
Oh yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things where if we go any further, like too much further, I'm gonna run into that brick wall known as like brain melt before sleep. So
That's fair. It is a little earlier here because
Yes.
I'm in Mountain Time Zone, so I'm 2 hours behind you guys.
yes.
So for me, it's still a little bit earlier in the evening, but I can totally see the shutdown.
Yeah.
No,
For me, it's
no,
almost 10. For him, it's almost 11. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's been one of those days, and my day sort of started up like
Oh,
at the 3 something a.m. mark.
3 a.m. No good,
Oh.
man.
Yeah.
Ow.
so while we're all in the cast, while we've all gotten to know each other, so Nick, I have
Yeah.
a special request, and you can say no to this. So we already
Oh,
have
just
you
kidding.
saying.
Go ahead.
No one have dirty minds. So you've already said calling out retro gamers. I'm wondering if Rich makes you full screen, would you would you do a RetroKillDashNine? And then I can, you know, I can play that like on Evercast or do something, and you can annoy people.
That's fine. I can do that.
All right.
But wait, let it make you full screen.
Okay, hang on.
Let me move you guys around.
Yeah.
I have to channel my inner.
That might be a thing I start asking people.
Yeah, we'll solo lay out you. And then
RetroKillDashNine!
All right.
Do one more.
Yeah, do one more because I think I was talking over. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
All right, ready?
RetroKillDashNine!
Did you get it without him talking?
I think so.
Okay.
Do I need to do a third time?
Do a third time.
Okay. RetroKillDashNine!
There we go. Perfect.
That's great. That's good times.
Because,
Very good times.
no, it's kind of it's funny because we've had Retro Ralph on and I was watching him live and I forget what I said. He just decided to do that and people seem to like that. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna ask. And so
That's fine. Doesn't bother me any.
well, it's funny. Well, no, the history because I don't know. I think I did it once, and like Ian Hobbies, like he commented, and then RetroKilled, and then I did it again, and then because
This
of
isn't you guys. I have this fly that's been like attacking me all evening. I'm sorry.
That's all good. So yeah, between Pete being annoyed by it and even Hobbies has kept it alive. So that's why.
Yes, that is a thing. That's neat though.
That might be a fun thing. We might have to start asking people. That's why.
So yeah, everyone. So you got to do calling all Retro Gamers first, and then anyone that we get back, we just get them back to do a
RetroKillDashNine.
Yeah. That's cool. I'm
Yeah.
down
Look,
with
fly, me and you're gonna have a problem.
I know. I hate flies.
it. Nice. So, does anyone have anything like coming on up?
I am desperately trying to get my Kirby video out.
Nice.
I have at least one more minute of like full editing, and then I have to get music in, and I have to make the thumbnail. So I don't know what's going to happen this week.
What do you use for your video editing? I kept.
I use Premiere Pro.
Oh, nice. That's what we
primarily
use too.
because I was already using Photoshop, and so since I already had the subscription for Photoshop, it was like an extra $10 to $20 a month to get like After Effects, Premiere, and like a couple of Lightroom and a couple other things. And I'm like, fine, whatever, here. So I just did that. I really, at some point, have got to go through because I've got bookmarked a video that Panda was kind enough to put up that goes into like the basics of After Effects, and I've really got to sit down and chew on that.
Me too.
Yeah, that video is awesome
because it's good stuff, man. That's huge for someone like him to do a video like that. I've really got to spend a lot of time studying that because that's something I kind of want to start doing in my video editing. There may even be ways that I can do some of the things that I do, and because everything I do is just out of Premiere Pro right now, right? So anything you see me doing is just stuff that I've managed to bash together in Premiere Pro. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of that stuff might be easier if I tried to use After Effects more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because
once I got familiar with it.
Yeah, some of those custom transition things and some of those other like 3D element manipulation, there's a whole mode in After Effects that does just that. You can bring your elements in, so. Yeah,
you can bring in the main video, then you can bring in other things, and there's a lot of mapping and stuff like that where you can like pull certain things out and stuff like that you can do in there. Yeah. Wow, I'm very slow.
I was gonna say I didn't know you were really quick.
The slowdown's really bad. Oh my god, it's so bad tonight. I don't know what's going on. I may need to reboot my computer.
It's all good. It's all good. So, all right, Ed, I know, like you got your Tuesday vid all going out. Do you have anything else you're working on?
Yes. So, all right. So funny thing. So actually, I have a video that I've been wanting to release, but I kept pushing it back with all the Capcom hype.
Sure. Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to be releasing Tuesday, and then I'll talk about it afterwards. So I don't know why, but for a while now, I guess with Atari and everything, I've been wanting to compare. Like we've kind of talked about like Tate mode and how like Centipede and all that is like meant for a trackball, but we don't get that. So I've been really wanting to compare those different versions, and I went through and I played them all again, and I decided that what I was gonna, because I think everyone can agree like Centipede and Millipedes, they're like S or A tier games, so that wouldn't be like fun to rank them that way. But what I thought would be fun,
only if you're playing them with a trackball though.
Well, so
like if you're playing them with a ball controller, absolutely. If you're playing them with like a D-pad, I feel like the experience goes down a little bit.
It does, and so that's why. So you have your Centipede and Millipede for arcade. And then you have your 2600 version of Centipede, your 7800 version of Centipede, and your 2600 version of Millipede. And so that's what. So my next video, and I talk about this is my experience playing them strictly on the Evercade, not in the arcade. And yeah, the fact of not having the trackball does hurt it. And so I went ahead and I ranked them in order, and I picked the definitive version. Another fun fact: there is a prototype unreleased version of Millipede for the 5200, and I talk about that like with Evercade having prototype and unreleased again, like that was a miss in my opinion. Like they should have had that on one of those collections.
See, and this is where I'm going to talk about the VCS right before we leave. I feel like the VCS kind of missed the mark in a lot of ways on what they really needed to do, because where they really could have sold it is getting stuff like that to come out, like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Prototypes, early versions, revisions of games that they don't release a lot in collections. Bring that stuff to the VCS, because that's the target market for that, right? That's what it's for. And honestly, until I started really looking at some of my history videos, the console itself didn't make a lot of sense. But when you look at it in retrospective, they did personal computers and consoles. Having a hybrid device makes more sense, right? Yep. From that perspective. Now, if I was to get one and rip it apart and put Windows on it, then I have to beg the question of why did I buy it?
Yeah.
Because then it doesn't make any sense anymore. But if you could put, like, say, Atari 800 Basic or something like that on there, and load those games and maybe code some of the things on that and do that. Well, the cool that kind of stuff. That makes total sense. And why they had, I don't know. I feel like they've kind of given up on that product before they really gave it a chance to be the cool niche product it probably could have been. I don't know. There's a lot of ideas I feel like would work with that.
I think what happened was that they didn't have the team, I guess, ready to really work on all of that stuff, to really like get together and take Atari OS and really run with it. Right. So what it wound up becoming was just a simple dashboard. They've improved it over time, and it's really effective. It's really cool. I like it a lot. But yeah, I mean, it's just simply another system that has a store that has a small selection of games that you can get.
Right. And
then it has the ability to dual boot, and you can do your Windows thing and all that fun stuff. But
and then I'll just finish up saying, so because of, and sometimes I like to be 1 week ahead to give a little more time. And then currently what I'm working on, because I'm still on the Capcom hype train, is that I'm going to go through and rank like what my anticipated top 10, like the 18 games, like the top 10 that I'm looking forward to playing on the EXP&Y. So that'll be
that's
after
a cool
the
idea.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good idea.
Very cool.
So
very cool.
That's kind of what I'm working. Rich, I'm hoping you'll come out with another. I know you've been busy. I'm hoping you'll come out with another video next week.
Oh yeah, well it's again, it's just I've been on a Vice again this week. I keep staring at these purple cartridges, and they're looking me dead in the face, and they're like, "Rich, what are you doing? What is wrong with you?" Like, just
those were the only ones I got through. Now I've got all the regular Evercade carts, and I'm looking at them going, now I've got a stack of like 10 that I haven't opened. 2 of which were a gift from like a good friend of the channel.
Nice.
Nice.
And I'm like, oh God, it's so intimidating now.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like, I want to get into this and get through and do all of the arcade carts and get my Fun for Fives done. So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to doing. So that is it will happen now. Like, so now I know. If I don't get to any shooting before the Evercast, directly after the Evercast, I know now there is a pretty large gap of time where no one else is in the house except for Pippin. And when it's just me and Pippin, then I got the time. So I am all in on getting those shoots done. So Pippin being my dog, by the way.
That's what yeah.
And he loves just hanging out. He'll like curl up and just fall asleep on my feet, and then I'll just play. So that'll be awesome. So I'm hoping to get through that. And I will also, even though it might be small news or old news by the time I get to it, I will actually have a combo Atari VCS news / possible Fun for Five coming out for the VCS, because as I've promised everybody, I've played every single release on the Atari VCS store. So if there was a solid release that wasn't an emulated game that came out, so we're talking like Super Mash or the Recharge games or any of those other ones, right? I own and have played every single one of them and have Fun for Five all of them on the channel. So when there is a new release, I must Fun for Five. So and there is today actually dropped Space Grunts from the same company that did a release from 2 weeks ago, and I cannot remember for the life of me that title of that game, but it's Orange Pixel is the developer, and they said that they're going to put out probably like 5 or 6 of those games, and this is now the second that they've released. So keep them coming because every new release, again, it's another game that I can play, which is awesome. So
I can't be in the minority here that I feel like a lot of these niche consoles and even Steam Deck is a great place to be able to find more indie style games.
100%.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Like they really need to lean into that. Even
yes.
It's even like and to not go too deep into a console that doesn't exist yet. To mention the Amico for a second.
Yeah.
We need to do a prayer some days.
So
Finding unique, underrated developers or new developers and getting them into an ecosystem, getting them to start. Playdate is another great place for that.
100%
as well, right?
Absolutely.
To get people to cut their teeth, to get them to start with their games, to bring titles out, to bring them out on platforms that aren't quite as saturated, so they can get a name for themselves that people will start to follow.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, and Blaze has been doing that as well. On the Evercade side.
No, the Indie Heroes, and I need to fund a second Indie Heroes collection because that first one's it's so good. There's like maybe 2 games on that I don't care for, but man, that is such a solid card.
I think the second one comes out in November, if I remember right.
Indie Heroes 2? Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then they've been doing the game of the month, which is I like getting the preview, but then I'm purposely not like completing those games because I want to.
Yes. Yeah, because you want to dig in when the card comes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but yeah, man. Good stuff. So as we bring this to a close and wrap up, I do want to definitely thank you so much, Nick, for joining us.
It was a blast being here.
It is awesome to be hanging out with you. So, and we got to get you back on.
Hey, when you guys want me on, let me know. I will clear it with the wife because I try not to stream too much. Depending on the week, it may be a bad week because if I do. Like, say, if I get back into my own streaming and I do Retro Roots on my original channel, and then I do a stream, and then I'm on Amico Forever, and then I'm on here, my wife may literally kill me.
Happy belated birthday, by the way. I forgot. Didn't you have a birthday recently?
Who, me? Mine was in April.
Oh.
You missed that by a few months, but thank you.
For some reason, I thought you did, or maybe not, or maybe I'm getting confused. I thought, whatever.
I'm soon. Just to throw that out there.
Happy early birthday, then.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought. Yeah,
it's 2 weeks in a day from right now. So,
and you're gonna have a birthday too. So happy birthday to you as well. So we're gonna cover everybody. Happy birthday to everybody in chat.
Everybody in chat.
Whenever you have a birthday,
yes.
There we've covered everybody.
That's awesome.
So anyway, again, yes, thanks, Fan of Fiction. Thanks to Nick. Thanks to this awesome chat for hanging out with us. It's always great to see you guys and hang out. Don't forget too, when we do our little banner that looks like this, there's a number in there.
Yeah.
You can like write it down and like call, and then my phone will actually ring. So don't do it during the show.
Rigatoni, you stopped calling us. Call us again.
Yeah. Somebody call us and leave us a message. Yeah. And when you do, we will actually we'll address it right on the show. It'll be awesome. It could be anything. You just ask us about like whatever, some weird stuff. Just keep it PG. PG-13 maybe. I don't know.
Don't do PG.
Right.
So, anyway.
Go hardcore.
So at any rate, thanks everybody again for watching. Thanks again, Nick. And until next time, we will catch you next time for some more Calling All Retro Gamers. We are out. See ya.
Happy gaming, everybody.
All retro gamers.
This concludes our broadcast day.
Click.